The Cleveland Indians franchise actually did not start off in Cleveland. It started in Grand Rapids, Michigan in 1894. They were a minor league team who went by the name the Grand Rapids Rustlers. In 1900, the franchise relocated to Cleveland and they went by the new name the Cleveland Lakeshores. In 1901, the franchise was a part of 8 new Major League Baseball teams that were forming the American League. Between 1900 and 1914, the franchise went through 4 name changes before finally sticking on the new name the Cleveland Indians. The name was chosen to honor former MLB player Louis Francis Sock Alex, a Native American baseball legend. But I'm not here today to talk about the history of the Cleveland Indians.
Drive into left! At the wall, it's gone! Tie game! Rajay Davis! 6-6!
This logo right here is the reason for my video today. Native Americans feel like the use of Chief Wahoo for the Indians is racist and disrespectful, despite the fact that the Indians franchise says that the logo is intended to honor them. According to Jack Guggenheim, the logo was created by Walter Goldbach in 1946. Goldbach's uncle was the owner of a graphics store in Cleveland, and then Indians owner Bill Veeck called the store looking for a new logo for the franchise. That's when 17-year-old Goldbach was hired by the Indians to make the new logo for the team, and from then on, the rest was history. Even though this logo created by Goldbach was the one that was chosen, people realized that he did not come up with the logo on his own. A Cleveland newspaper called The Plain Dealer used a cartoon in a newspaper after every Indians game, and it was alongside the results of the previous day's game. Fans started to take a liking to the logo, and the newspaper started to use it every time the Indians played. The cartoon was known as The Little Indian, and as you can see, it very closely resembles Goldbach's version of Chief Wahoo. This logo was created by the newspaper in 1932, 15 years before Goldbach created his version. Also, the name of the mascot, Chief Wahoo, was not made up by Goldbach. The term had been previously used by the newspapers in a comic strip that ran from 1936 to 1947 about the Indians. Then, as the media kept on using the name Chief Wahoo and the new logo came out, the term officially stuck. That was the history on the creation of the logo and the name itself, but now here's why the logo has caused so much controversy. The Chief Wahoo logo has been a topic of conversation pretty much ever since it has been created. Native Americans feel like it is racist that the franchise has been using this logo for all of these years. Philip Yenyo is a director of the American Indian Movement of Ohio, and he is one person who is very outspoken about the use of the logo. He thinks that the logo is very offensive to their culture. Here's a quote I got from Al Jazeera News from Yenyo. "I think they're offensive. I don't believe that any group of people should be used as mascots. We're human beings. We're living in the culture. Our ancestors have passed down knowledge to us and our spiritual beliefs. The Chief Wahoo character wears an eagle feather that is very sacred to our people." This is just one example of someone who felt strongly against the logo, but there are countless numbers of people who have spoken out against this too. But in the end, the narrative remains the same, that the Native Americans are very offended by this. From NCAI.org, the Native American people do not feel like the logos used not only by the Indians franchise, but by other franchises too, are not being used to honor the Native American people, but they rather feel that the stereotypes being used are harmful and that they disregard the personhood of the Native peoples. I will now go into some courses of action that have been taken by the Native Americans to show their disapproval of the logo. Here is this billboard created by Edgar Heap of Birds. This billboard was located outside the Indian Stadium for many years, and it's just one thing that shows how they really feel about the logo. Per Cleveland State University, another thing happened with the Native Americans during an Indians game. During the 1997 World Series run for the Indians, when they probably expected fans just to go out and support the team to try and get their first World Series title since 1946, it was a place of protest for Native Americans because this is one of the biggest stages they can do it on. They burned a sculpture outside of the Indian Stadium showing Chief Wahoo, and then again on April 9th, 1998, another sculpture was burned, resulting in 5 people being arrested. Then, again, in 2016, when the Indians made the World Series, facing off against the Chicago Cubs, the two franchises who own the longest World Series droughts in the league, it was another place for the Native Americans to show their disapproval of the logo, and it was another place where they can spark up their protests, and this time, these protests had a lasting effect. Former MLB Commissioner Bud Selig had a hands-off approach when it came to the debate of the logo. He said that while he was in charge that he never received a single complaint about the logo, which is kind of ridiculous. But then, when new Commissioner Rob Manfred came into power, he knew that he wanted to bring about change. He was very set on changing the logo and ensuring that there would be a culture of diversity and inclusion throughout the MLB. In 2014, the Indians went away from using the Chief Wahoo logo as their primary logo. This was a huge step for Native Americans, but they didn't get what they fully wanted. They used the traditional block letter C as their logo, but the Chief Wahoo logo was still used on their home caps and a patch on their jerseys. Then, finally, prior to the 2018 season, the Indians and Commissioner Rob Manfred announced that this would be the last season that the Chief Wahoo logo would be used at all, and they would move on to the Block C as the primary and only logo. The last time the logo was in use was in the Indians' 11-3 defeat in the ALDS to the Astros on October 8, 2018. When Golbat created this logo back in 1947, he probably never imagined that there would be this much backlash that came along with it. The Native Americans felt oppressed and disrespected and needed to make that known. And after many years of protest and fighting for what they believed in, they got what they deserved. And now, Chief Wahoo is a thing of the past.